CBS Y&R spoilers recap full Thurdays January to 9 to 6. In the next episode, the atmosphere in Genoa City quietly shifts into something heavier, more ominous, as the absence of a child begins to press down on everyone involved. Even before anyone can fully name what is wrong, Abby Winters feels it first, not as a clear realization, but as a tightening in her chest, a sense that the day is slipping away too quickly and taking something precious with it. The light outside fades earlier than she expects, shadows stretching across the windows of the house she shares with Devon, and it is in that simple, ordinary moment when evening arrives, without ceremony, that panic finally begins to surface. She points out the obvious fact that should not feel threatening, that suddenly does. It is getting dark, and Dominic is nowhere to be found. What makes the fear sharper is not just that Dom is missing from her line of sight, but that there's no clear explanation for why he should be gone. No alarms have been raised yet. No one has said the word kidnapping, and yet Abby's instincts as a mother are screaming that something fundamental is wrong. Devon Winters tries to remain grounded, tries to be the steady presence Abby needs, but even he cannot ignore the growing unease that settles in the pit of his stomach as minutes stretch into hours. Together, they retrace their steps, replaying the day in their minds, clinging to routine as if routine itself might protect them from the possibility that something far worse has occurred. This is not a frantic search yet. It is still controlled, still measured, driven by the hope that Dominic is simply in another room, another space, watched over by someone they trust. That hope is what makes the moment so cruel, because the longer Dom fails to appear, the more the hope begins to fracture, turning into something sharper and more desperate. Abby's composure erodes quickly, her fear no longer something she can contain, while Devon feels the weight of responsibility pressing down on him, not only as a father, but as someone who believed they had built a safe world around their son. As their concern escalates, the involvement of Detective Burrows signals a subtle but significant shift in tone. The decision to bring in professional help is not made lightly, and it marks the moment when worry gives way to the acknowledgement that this situation may be beyond their control. Burrows' presence introduces a colder, more procedural energy into the search, one that contrasts painfully with Abby and Devon's raw emotional state. He asks questions that feel intrusive, but necessary, forcing them to confront details they would rather not examine, timelines they would prefer to believe are irrelevant. Each answer they provide feels like a small admission of failure, as if every overlooked moment might have been the one that allowed something unthinkable to happen. The search for Dominic is no longer just a personal crisis. It is becoming an investigation, and that transformation makes the loss feel frighteningly real. Unbeknownst to Abby and Devon, the truth of Dominic's disappearance unfolds elsewhere with a chilling calm. Mariah Copeland, the person least likely to be suspected, moves through her actions with a steady focus that borders on unsettling. Dominic lies asleep in the back seat of her car, small and unaware, wrapped in the fragile peace of a child who trusts the world around him. Mariah drives carefully, her eyes fixed on the road ahead, her hands gripping the steering wheel as if maintaining physical control will help her maintain emotional control as well. She takes a deep breath, grounding herself, reminding herself that she has a purpose, that what she is doing is necessary, even justified in her own fractured logic. There is no outward sign of panic, no visible breakdown, only a quiet determination that makes her all the more dangerous, because it suggests she has already crossed an internal line and cannot easily return. The contrast between Mariah's calm and the chaos beginning to consume Abby and Devon is striking. While they are unraveling in uncertainty, Mariah is singularly focused, compartmentalizing her fear, her guilt, and whatever unresolved emotions have driven her to this point. The sleeping child in the back seat is both her anchor and her burden, a symbol of everything she believes she has lost and everything she is trying, desperately, to reclaim or protect. Each mile she drives places more distance between Dominic and the life he knows, and yet Mariah's expression remains composed, as if acknowledging the full weight of her actions would cause her to collapse under it. This is not an impulsive act in her mind. It is a mission, one she believes she must see through, regardless of the consequences. What Mariah does not realize here perhaps underestimates is that she has left behind a silent clue, one that may prove far more powerful than she expects. Her brown scarf, forgotten on a chair in Abby Ann Devon's home, sits innocently among the familiar objects of daily life, waiting to be noticed. To Abby Ann Devon, the scarf may initially seem insignificant, just another item in a house filled with reminders of family and trust. But to the people who know Mariah best, it could become a glaring sign that something is wrong. Tessa Porter, with her deep emotional attunement to Mariah, might recognize the scarf immediately, sensing its absence as keenly as Abby senses her son's. Sharon Newman, too, knows her daughter's habits, her tells, the small details she leaves behind when her mind is elsewhere. The scarf has the potential to become the thread that unravels everything, not because it proves guilt outright, but because it raises the right questions at exactly the wrong time. As night falls over Genoa City, the emotional stakes continue to rise on multiple fronts. Abby's fear intensifies, evolving into a near-constant state of dread that leaves her struggling to breathe, while Devon fights to keep his emotions in check. Knowing that losing control will not help them find their son, Detective Burrow presses forward methodically, aware that time is their greatest enemy, even if no one has yet dared to say so out loud. Meanwhile, Mariah drives on, suspended in a fragile bubble of resolve, unaware that the smallest oversized scarf she left behind may be the very thing that leads the people she loves straight to her. The episode builds toward a devastating convergence of perspectives, the parents searching in the dark, the investigator piecing together a puzzle he does not yet fully see, and the woman who believes she is acting out of love, even as she risks destroying everything. And as each of them moves closer to the truth, the question is no longer whether Dominic will be found, but how much damage will be done by the time he is. Tomorrow's episode of The Young and the Restless is set to plunge Victoria Newman into one of the most emotionally disorienting moments of her life, as the very foundation of the Newman legacy begins to feel dangerously unstable. For Victoria, this crisis is not merely about business losses or strategic missteps. It is about the slow, terrifying realization that the empire her family built, the one she has spent her entire life defending and preparing to inherit, may be slipping beyond anyone's control. The uncertainty surrounding the future of the Newman name leaves her overwhelmed, caught between the instinct to fight and the paralyzing fear that there may be no clear solution at all. What makes this moment especially painful out of shared confusion within the family itself. No one seems to know how to fix what is breaking, and for a family accustomed to power and dominance, that sense of helplessness is almost unbearable. In the midst of this turmoil, Victoria's first instinct is to do what she has always done when the stakes are highest: step closer to her father. She wants to be Victor Newman's right hand, his most trusted ally, the one who stands beside him when difficult decisions must be made. This desire is rooted not only in ambition, but in loyalty, in a lifetime of conditioning that has taught her that the best way to protect the family is to be inside the decision-making circle. Victoria believes that by aligning herself fully with Victor, she can help stabilize the situation, or at the very least ensure that she is not blindsided by whatever comes next. Yet, for reasons that remain painfully unclear to her, Victor chooses not to include her in his next move. His refusal is not loud or dramatic, but it cuts deeply, reinforcing old wounds and insecurities that Victoria has never fully been able to silence. Victor's decision to keep Victoria at arm's length carries layers of meaning, even if he does not articulate them. Whether he believes he is protecting her, testing her, or simply trusting his own instincts above all else, the result is the same. Victoria is left feeling excluded at the precise moment she feels most vulnerable. The man she has spent her life trying to impress, emulate, and stand beside has once again reminded her that his plans operate on a level she is not always invited into. This exclusion leaves Victoria reeling, questioning not only her role within Newman Enterprises, but her value within her own family. The weight of legacy, once a source of pride, now feels like an impossible burden, pressing down on her from all sides. As the emotional pressure mounts, Victoria becomes visibly shaken, her usual composure cracking under the strain. She is overwhelmed not just by fear for the future, but by the loneliness that comes from realizing she cannot rely on her family for comfort in this moment. The irony is painful. Surrounded by powerful people, she has never felt more alone. It is in this fragile state that Victoria receives unexpected solace, not from a Newman, but from someone who knows her in a very different way. The comfort she needs rises from an old flame, a reminder of a past where vulnerability did not always feel like weakness. When Nate Hastings sees Victoria in distress, he does not hesitate to step in. He recognizes the signs immediate telleth tension in her posture, the barely controlled panic in her voice, and he responds not as a strategist or a colleague, but as someone who genuinely cares. Nate does everything he can to steady her, offering reassurance and presence rather than solutions. His support is quiet, but deeply personal, cutting through the chaos that has consumed Victoria's thoughts. In a moment charged with emotional intensity, Nate even pulls her into an embrace, a simple act that carries far more weight than either of them might be ready to confront. That physical closeness, meant to comfort, has the unintended consequence of stirring feelings that never truly disappeared, emotions both familiar and dangerous. The embrace becomes a turning point, not because it resolves anything, but because it complicates everything. For Victoria, being held by Nate offers a brief escape from the relentless pressure of her family name, a moment where she is not Victor's daughter or Newman Enterprises' potential savior, but simply a woman allowed to feel overwhelmed. For Nate, the act of comforting her blurs boundaries he may not have fully acknowledged were still fragile. The past they share lingers between them, unspoken but powerful, raising questions neither of them is ready to answer. What begins as comfort risks becoming something far more complicated, especially at a time when both of their lives are already in flux. While Victoria grapples with emotional upheaval, another storyline unfolds with equally high stakes, but a very different kind of risk. Sally Spectra finds herself at a critical crossroads, faced with decisions that could redefine her future. With Jill Abbott's health in decline, the balance of power shifts, creating a vacuum that demands action. Sally is not someone who waits patiently for clarity. She thrives in moments of uncertainty, where bold choices can either elevate her or destroy her. Sensing both opportunity and danger, Sally prepares to make a move that many will consider reckless, if not outright irresponsible. Her decision-making process is complicated by the shadow of Audra Charles. Despite repeated warnings from those around her, Sally remains determined to bring Audra into the fold. The advice she has received has been clear and consistent. Hiring Audra could invite chaos, betrayal, and long-term consequences that are impossible to control. And yet, Sally seems undeterred, convinced that she sees something others do not, or perhaps convinced that she can manage whatever risks Audra represents. This determination speaks volumes about Sally's character. She is drawn to danger, to potential, to the thrill of proving that she can succeed where others expect failure. The possibility that Audra's involvement could be tied to Jill's declining health only heightens the tension. Sally's willingness to act decisively in such a sensitive moment raises serious ethical and strategic questions. Is she positioning herself as a necessary leader in a time of crisis? Or is she exploiting vulnerability for personal gain? The line between courage and recklessness becomes increasingly blurred, and Sally appears willing to walk it without hesitation. Her confidence is both her greatest strength and her most glaring weakness, and this decision could easily become the moment that defines her career, for better or worse. As the episode unfolds, it becomes clear that Sally's choice to defy advice and pursue Audra's involvement will not remain isolated. Every action in Y&R City sends ripples outward, and this one has the potential to collide disastrously with existing tensions. Audra is not a neutral presence. She brings history, ambition, and unpredictability into any room she enters. Sally's insistence on hiring her suggests either extraordinary foresight or dangerous overconfidence, and the outcome will depend entirely on forces Sally may not be able to control once set in motion. By the end of the episode, viewers are left with a landscape defined by uncertainty and emotional vulnerability. Victoria stands shaken, caught between loyalty to her father and the painful reality of his exclusion. Comforted by a man who represents both solace and temptation, Nate finds himself drawn back into a connection that could complicate his own path. Sally moves forward with a decision that could reshape her future, fully aware that she is gambling on an outcome no one can guarantee. With Jill's health looming over everything and Audra's potential involvement threatening to destabilize an already fragile situation, the question is no longer whether chaos is coming, but who will be strong enough or ruthless enough to survive it. One thing is certain: the choices made now will echo far beyond tomorrow, leaving lasting consequences that no one in Genoa City can afford to ignore. The coming developments on the Young and the Restless signal a decisive shift in the balance of power as Sharon Newman chooses to align herself fully with Nick Newman in a calculated effort to force Phyllis Summers to finally answer for her role in Kane Ashby's hostile takeover of the Newman Empire. What begins as a strategic alliance quickly becomes something far more personal, as old wounds, unresolved rivalries, and years of resentment rise to the surface. Sharon does not enter this confrontation lightly. She is fully aware that Phyllis is not someone who backs down under pressure, nor is she someone easily swayed by moral arguments. Still, Sharon's doubts about whether she can truly push Phyllis into retreat do not stop her from stepping forward. On the contrary, they sharpen her resolve, transforming hesitation into anger and anger into action. For Sharon, this moment represents more than just a corporate reckoning. It is about accountability, about forcing Phyllis to acknowledge the damage she has helped unleash. Sharon sees the takeover not merely as a business maneuver, but as a violation of boundaries that should never have been crossed. By aligning herself with Kane and benefiting from the seizure of the Newman legacy, Phyllis has, in Sharon's eyes, chosen ambition over ethics, power over responsibility. Sharon's criticism of Phyllis is not polite or restrained. It is sharp, direct, and fueled by a sense of moral outrage that has been building for far too long. She refuses to soften her words or dilute her message, even if part of her suspects that Phyllis may be immune to guilt. Nick Newman's role in this confrontation sets the tone for everything that follows. Before Sharon ever steps in, Nick has already made his position brutally clear to Phyllis. His warning is not vague or symbolic. It is explicit and merciless. He makes it known that if Phyllis refuses to surrender, he will destroy her completely, leaving nothing but ashes behind. This is not the voice of compromise or negotiation. It is the voice of a man defending his family's legacy with absolute ferocity. Nick's fury is rooted in betrayal, not only because of what Phyllis has done to Newman Enterprises, but because of what her actions represent, a conscious choice to stand against him, against his family, and against everything the Newman name stands for. When Sharon steps into this already volatile situation, she does so with full awareness of the storm she is entering. She does not attempt to temper Nick's rage or soften his threats. Instead, she amplifies the pressure, making it clear that Phyllis will no longer be dealing with a single adversary. Sharon positions herself squarely beside Nick, forming a united front that leaves little room for misinterpretation. This is not about personal rivalry alone. It is about drawing a line and daring Phyllis to cross it again. Sharon's anger is quieter than Nick's, but no less intense. It carries the weight of years spent watching Phyllis escape consequences, manipulate outcomes, and walk away unscathed. Yet, for all their resolve, Nick and Sharon may be underestimating the woman they are confronting. Phyllis Summers does not view their alliance as a genuine threat. To her, the combined fury of Nick and Sharon is little more than an irritation, an obstacle she believes she can maneuver around with ease. She has faced their anger before and survived it. In her mind, this confrontation is simply another round in a long-standing power struggle, one she fully expects to endure. Phyllis's confidence borders on arrogance, but it is not without reason. She has already made her choice, and she has made it decisively. Phyllis's allegiance to Cain Ashby and the seized Newman Empire is not a temporary arrangement or a bargaining chip. It is a commitment. She believes that aligning herself with Cain places her on the winning side of history, and she is unwilling to abandon that position simply because Nick and Sharon demand it. In Phyllis's worldview, loyalty is transactional, and power is something to be seized, not inherited or protected out of sentimentality. The idea that she should feel remorse for helping Cain dismantle the Newman stronghold is, to her, almost laughable. She sees opportunity where others see betrayal, and she has no intention of surrendering the advantages she has gained. This unwavering stance is precisely what makes the confrontation so dangerous. Nick's threats are not empty, and Sharon's determination is not performative. Both are prepared to escalate the situation far beyond words if necessary. Sharon's decision to stand beside Nick signals that she is done playing the role of the reasonable mediator. She is ready to unleash her own fury, to confront Phyllis not just as a rival, but as someone who must finally be held accountable. The emotional history between these three characters adds an extra layer of volatility, turning what could have been a strategic dispute into a deeply personal war. As tensions escalate on this front, another storyline quietly moves toward a shocking turn. Abby and Devin Winters, already carrying the emotional weight of recent events, are about to receive news that will send shockwaves through their lives. The nature of this revelation is not yet fully clear, but its impact is undeniable. Whatever they learn has the potential to alter their understanding of their current situation, forcing them to confront realities they may not be prepared to face. The timing could not be worse, as Abby and Devin are already navigating emotional instability, making this new development all the more destabilizing. The shock awaiting Abby and Devin serves as a stark reminder that in Genoa City, crises rarely occur in isolation. While Nick and Sharon wage war against Phyllis and Cain over the fate of an empire, personal lives continue to fracture under the pressure of secrets and unexpected truths. The convergence of these storylines underscores a central theme of the young and the restless. Power struggles at the top inevitably trickle down, leaving collateral damage in their wake. Abby and Devin's impending news may not be directly tied to the corporate battle, but its emotional fallout will ripple outward, intersecting with the broader chaos engulfing the Newman family. As these narratives unfold, one thing becomes increasingly clear: the era of quiet maneuvering is over. Sharon's decision to openly challenge Phyllis alongside Nick marks a turning point, one where old alliances harden and new lines are drawn. Phyllis's refusal to back down sets the stage for a confrontation that could permanently alter the balance of power in Genoa City. And with Abby and Devin bracing for a revelation that threatens to upend their world, the question is no longer who will win, but how much everyone will lose in the process. The coming episodes promise not resolution, but escalation, as pride, ambition, and unresolved resentment collide with devastating consequences that no one will be able to ignore.